Welcome to Microsoft Ignite 2023. My name is Bruno Borges, and I'm a Principal PM Manager at Microsoft Java Engineering Group in the Developer Division. And I'm here with Michael YenChi Ho. Michael,
Yep.
hello.
Hi, I'm Michael YenChi Ho, Senior Product Manager for Azure DevX Engineering Group, and happy to be here with all of you.
All right, so Michael and everyone watching, we are here to talk about how to modernize our Java applications and how to bring them to the cloud. First, you have to answer a few questions there, like why modernize it at all? And then after that, we're going to take a quick look at what modern Java looks like and why should customers be interested in that? And finally, the most important part, how can we help you bring your Java applications to the cloud, re-platform them, and also modernize your Java application with the latest technologies in the Java ecosystem? And we're going to show you two tools that our teams have been working on to help you and perhaps our customers as well, if you're a partner, to assess and migrate your applications to Azure. So, Michael, walk us through why modernize in the first place?
Yeah, totally. So there's a lot of the benefits of modernizing your application. As you know, like lift and shift might be fast, might be easy. Just ship the boxes that you already have onto Azure, and then you're able to actually get up and running. But there's a lot of the caveats. There's also a lot of the sort of the downsides of that because it's not like optimized for the cloud. Sometimes it is not as easy to like maintain or operate or even like add new features or change your developer lifecycle or even the DevOps lifecycle. So modernize it is actually a better idea of like rehosting or re-platforming better than rehosting itself, which basically helps you with a lot more like easier way of like getting your application up and running, getting your like developer CI/CD lifecycle set up, the DevOps lifecycle set up, give your tooling and also your team's best practices against any kind of a potential threats or potential security issues. And that also gives you a lot of the new business opportunities to actually iterate your application much faster and also reduce the technical depth on that aspect. So everything there that optimize your costs and also bringing everything faster to the market. And based on the McKinsey Developer Velocity report, that you are actually getting a lot more from replatforming your application and also doing the modernization of your application, where you're seeing a lot of the priorities that are being sort of aligned much easier. You are also seeing a lot of the security practices that are being mitigated. Like there's no more security risks or security sort of the endpoints that will be infringed or be touched by the unwanted parties. And there's also the overall reduction of IT budget, where you're using like a lot more efficient ways of developing your application and also running everything in the cloud after it's been re-platformed. And in here, where you're seeing is basically you get a better cost ROI of like shifting your application onto a PaaS model instead of like, having some IT ops team to manage everything day to day for you, patching out all of the different stuff or running all of the different like VMs infrastructure underlying it. You can have like the PaaS platform to actually help you like basically literally like eliminating all of the different difficulties there. You can also enhance the security by using the in-platform capabilities that we offer you. You're also having a much easier way to integrate all of the different services like AI services, like data services, like other like human intelligence or AI, like artificial intelligence services altogether. You can also maximize the overall scale and also scale out, scale up much easier and also scale down when you don't need that much of the capacity. While lastly, you're going to be focusing a lot more on your business logic and not the maintenance of the application itself. And there's already been a lot of the different enterprises running their Java applications and also their Java sort of deployments on top of our PaaS platform. You see their commercial-facing or consumer-facing applications that are actually running on top of our PaaS platform to actually support their massive amount of the global customers. That's actually a very good proven point that, hey, these are the predecessors that's already been using it, and they've been having great success running applications, running large-scale services across the globe to actually serve their customers. And the outcome is actually very simple as well. They get a much faster response. They get a lot easier new feature added to their day-to-day like consumer applications or commercial applications. They're also reducing their overall IT costs by like implementing the DevOps best practices that we offer them, as well as running their application with our platform to offer them the maximum security and also the maximum governance overall. So with all of which, that helps the customers to actually progress faster, and so can you. So modernizing application with Azure PaaS gives you the advantage of literally trimming down a lot of the times on like getting everything together. So traditionally, enterprises would take like days or even weeks to set up just the environment. And they also take a lot of the time to actually test the code or just to, run unit testing or run A/B testing and whatnot with their like original like code base. And then there's also a lot of the like operation that's needed by human to literally connect to everything from merging the new code to the existing code, from putting everything to production and whatnot. But by moving everything to the cloud or to PaaS, you basically trim everything down into like within minutes or within like, hours, you're able to actually get your large scale application, large scale PaaS to be shipped in front of the customers right away. And that is massive. Like in the past, it takes weeks, even months to be able to actually roll out new features to, accommodate new asks. Like, hey, when there's a new sale coming up, when there's like a, some request for changes coming up, it's taking forever. But now within just, minutes, you got everything checked in and everything is in production and you don't need to worry about all of the maintenance or any security breaches anymore. And that helps tremendously with reducing the overall cost on human and also the overall cost on the overall IT expenditure that you're seeing and brings in like, time to market and also your customer satisfaction. And we're supporting you with all the needs across the entire portfolio. So we offer you with different tools like Azure Migrate that you're going to see in a minute. You see like AppCat, which is the application and code assessment toolkit that helps you assess the overall code bases and also the dependencies across everything that you're using. And then you have all the different replatforming capabilities on the PaaS platform that you can use. Either it's on app service, container apps, Spring apps, or even Kubernetes service based on your need of maximum control, or you need maximum simplicity that you were able to actually get everything running in a very short second. And then finally, you have like the latest technology across our Azure portfolio of like the different database options, the different AI options, the different like API management or associated services that you can get to use. So that literally helps you boost your productivity from 0 to 1 much faster, and also from 1 to 100 with the massive scale that Azure provides you worldwide. And also mitigating any of the potential risks that you might be prone into, any of the potential like regulations that you might be prone into in each of the different regions that Azure fulfills it for you. So that's the overall benefits of running everything on top of the PaaS platform. And now Bruno's going to talk more about, well, what about modernizing Java on top of all these PaaS platform? Back to you, Bruno.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, it feels like I'm going to have more time to drink coffee, I guess, with all this modernization and amount of hours saved from using Azure PaaS. Looking forward to it. So yeah, modernizing Java applications. There's of course leveraging platform as a service in the cloud. There is of course best practices for practices, methodologies for developing software in a more agile manner. But the software stack also has been evolving. Like Java alone is certainly following the same speed as cloud in the recent years. The most used Java version today, we can still claim it's Java 8, which was released back in 2014. When Java 8 came up, it was quite disruptive. It added some functionality like lambda expressions, streaming API, optional types, default methods, container awareness. But then 4 years later came Java 11. And there were a few versions in between that were not considered long-term supported versions of Java. So customers are looking at Java 11 as well, with new APIs for collections, new file access API, which is a lot easier when you compare to the old code, more string manipulation APIs. And then there's this new HTTP client inside the Java platform. For many years, developers were using third-party libraries to do an HTTP connection with a server, like say a REST API, that they need to call from their Java application. But now Java Platform has that API built in. We saw this evolution of hardware with new ARM-based servers that provide a lot lower energy consumption, and it's a lot cheaper in many cloud providers, including Azure. So that also allowed the Java applications to run on that new hardware. There's a new capability called JDK File Recorder that was open sourced by Oracle and brought up into the Java open source OpenJDK project. File Recorder allows developers to find where the bottleneck might be in their application by monitoring performance metrics from the JVM. There's other features like performance and warm-up startup time, like applications CDS. There's this new feature called run single source file, where you can write the code in a single file and you don't even need to compile, just run Java on that file, more like a Python or a Node application. And then the introduction of the G1GC. G1GC was part of the JVM in previous versions, but it was on Java 11 that it became mainstream and it became the primary garbage collector with a lot of performance benefits. And as we know, the better performance, the cheaper it becomes to run the system on any environment, especially in the cloud, where you're paying by hours of like CPU and memory usage. Then 2021 came. Java 17 introduced a bazillion amount of features and enhancements, and especially performance enhancements as well. So for developers, they have this new type called records, which is like a class, but it doesn't have all the ceremony of getters and setters. It's just a record type. Just provide the properties and it's an immutable type. Text blocks. Hey, if you're gonna write a SQL query, I don't know, Michael, I say SQL. Some developers prefer to say SQL. I don't know. Either way works.
Yeah,
but it's a nice way to write SQL statements now using text blocks where you have like multi-line strings. Sealed classes for API developers, pattern batching, better null pointer exception. Here's something developers will love when they modernize their Java apps to Java 17. When you get a null pointer exception, you not only get like, oh yeah, there's a null, good luck finding where the null is. The better null pointer exception actually tells you which property from that chain of calls is actually null. So let's say foo.bar.x.y. Well, if X is null, the null pointer exception will say X is null. And that is great because developers would spend hours trying to figure that out. Settle random number generators, it's quite an enhancement, especially on production systems. You wanna generate tokens and things like that. It could take a while. When I say a while, I say like hundreds of milliseconds. Now it's just tens or even less. And then here's something where Microsoft, around 2020, 2021, Microsoft started contributing to the OpenJDK project. And we actually contributed to the port of OpenJDK to run on macOS Apple Silicon devices, like the Apple M1. That work came together with the Windows port for ARM. So Microsoft contributed a lot of ARM-related code and Apple Silicon code into OpenJDK to be able to run Java on Apple M1, Apple M2, and those Apple Silicon devices, and Windows on ARM devices. So you can run Java there, besides, of course, Linux ARM support. And finally, container awareness. Again, container awareness was something that was added into Java back in Java 8, but it was enhanced, especially because of C Group's version 2 on Java 17, release of 2021. And other features like dynamic CDS, elastic managed space for better memory allocation, and the Z garbage collector, which is another garbage collector from Oracle. This one for especially quite interesting for large heaps. If you have like a big data server, you should definitely consider Java 17 or things like that for your big data solutions with these garbage collector. And then just last month, September 2023, we saw the release of Java 21. We had additions of like record patterns, switch pattern matching, virtual threads. So no more concerns about writing async code inside Java. You can just use as many threads as you want because they are virtual. You really don't have to be that concerned about. And performance should be pretty much the same, but the programming style is what gets better. Sequence collections, UTF-8 by default, simple web server. If you want to host static files with Java, there's now a simple Java API for running a web server in it. Enhancements to garbage collectors, and this generational ZGC, which is another level of enhancement into the Z garbage collector. So as you can see, Java continues to evolve. It is up to the customers, of course, to take advantage of all these features, both in terms of developer productivity, but also in terms of performance at runtime. So they can save at development time, but also at production time. If the JVM can run faster, you need less resources in the cloud. If you need less resources in the cloud, your system costs less. So let's take a look at how the ecosystem is. Oh, there's a bunch of other features here that I forgot. The Java ecosystem is evolving together with Java itself. I mean, Spring Boot 3 got launched recently this year, 2023, and it only supports Java 17 now. If you have a Spring Boot application, and many customers do, and you want to take advantage of Spring Boot 3.0 and later versions, you have to move to JDK 17. But that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. You're going to get a lot of benefits, as we saw before. And there's also this technology from Oracle called GraalVM that provides customers and developers the ability to convert their applications into a single native binary, which it gets smaller in terms of size, it gets smaller in terms of memory footprint, and it gets faster in terms of startup and warm-up time. And peak performance is roughly the same when compared to the traditional JVM. But that's another exercise for you who's watching to go check out GraalVM and that technology. But that's just to show you how Java has been evolving with many options on how to run your Java application in the cloud. So there is a 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗶𝗀𝗀 company from Perforce. They did this survey recently, and they asked customers what versions are they using. And as you can see here, like 19% of the respondents are already on Java 17. Yes, Java 8 is still largely used, but we can see that developers are moving along, and so should you. And why do they move? I mean, we heard Michael saying about security when they move their applications to the cloud. Well, moving to newer versions of Java also provides security enhancements as security fixes are provided in new versions. So security is a very important aspect of that. And staying with the long-term support version of Java with the latest is part of that. Customers want to feel secure, and they want to know that they have the support from their vendors. That's why Microsoft provides its own build of OpenJDK, and we do provide commercial support for Java on Azure. And performance is always there. And finally, compliance. You know, compliance is interesting for many companies, especially companies working in the financial industry, in the healthcare industry, or working with governments and things like that. Yeah, they do care a lot about compliance. But how Java is getting faster? Well, this is a performance benchmark from LinkedIn that they show how moving from Java 8 to Java 11 provided more than 2.5 times more throughput. That's on the blue bar at the bottom here. And also the latency, how it increased, like their P99 latency stayed below the 10, 15 milliseconds. Like tremendous advantage moving from Java 8 to Java 11. And this is for an open source project called Apache Pinot that is used for some of the LinkedIn's backend infrastructure. And yeah, the benefits is clearly there. This is another benchmark that LinkedIn also executed, comparing Java 8 with different garbage collectors. We can see how lower is bad, bigger is better. So this one is different. I think it's operations per second, this chart here. And we can see how with Java 11, we got more operations per second on every scenario here. Finally, the Spring folks at VMware provided this benchmark comparing, I mentioned GraalVM before, and also Apple Silicon supporting Java. And we can see how running a Spring application with traditional JVM versus GraalVM versus new technologies in the OpenJDK project are showing the benefits of performance. So customers should really pay attention to what's going on in newer versions of Java, not only now, but in the near future with things like Project Layden, who aims at enhancing that startup and warm-up performance. And Michael mentioned like scaling up and down your application in the cloud is extremely important so you can manage your cost very well. And because of that, startup and warm-up time is crucial so that you can scale up and get the performance benefits of your distributed system a lot faster instantaneously, as well as the scale down, or even scale down to zero. If you don't have anything running, you're paying nothing. And if that is like 3 a.m. in the morning, you don't need your system up and running, yeah, you can totally scale down to zero. So we can help customers modernize their Java applications. And there are two solutions for that right now. So let's talk about Azure Migrate. Azure Migrate is a solution that has existed for a while, and we continue to enhance it. It helps customers discover applications with potential for moving to Azure. And then we provide recommendation plans and estimates to run those applications on Azure, which service and how much it may cost, things like that, and then actually run the migration. Now, there's, of course, details in that on what exactly is supported and what exactly is up to the customer to perform. So that's why I brought Gaurav Seth from the Azure Migrate team to talk to us.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gaurav. Morning, good evening, depending on from where you've joined. So I'm going to spend some time talking about different migration tooling that's available, like for migrating your .NET web applications to Azure App Services. So here is a quick overview of different tooling that's available with Azure App Services. So you can see what we are trying to achieve is we are trying to basically get into different tools for different scopes of migration. So if you're looking to migrate your entire data center, that's where you would pretty much look at using the whole Azure Migrate integrated experience for .NET web applications. Now, what happens there is once you're done with configuring your appliance and once you're done with discovery, I mean, you can run bulk assessments on literally hundreds of your data .NET web applications in your data center and then follow that app with bulk migration. Now, there are always use cases where you may just want to probably migrate an entire web server, not the data center. That's where you should look at using PowerShell scripts. Now, there are some more use cases for PowerShell scripts as well. If you're looking to move your web applications of a cloud service or on a VM over to Azure App Service, again, you can look at using PowerShell scripts. And finally, if you're just looking at experiencing or having do some experimentation with the migration tooling, that's where App Service Standalone Migration Assistant tool comes into the picture, where you basically just do a discovery, assessment, and migration of a single .NET web application. So moving on, and as I said, pretty much if you're looking at migrating your entire data center, this is the tool, this is the experience that you look at. So basically, along with App Services and Azure Migrate team, we have a collaboration where basically we have this tool where you can do a bulk discovery. And from a discovery perspective, we are supporting .NET and Java Tomcat applications both. And again, the support is there on VMware, Hyper-V, and physical servers itself. Now, when it comes to assessment, currently we have support for .NET web applications. As we speak, we are working on getting the Java Tomcat support itself, even from an assessment perspective. And now what happens is you run assessments again in individual web applications. So that's where you come back and get a list of different categorization, like, is it ready for migration? Is it ready with conditions? Meaning post-migration, you might require some configuration changes, or your web application is currently not ready for migration. And finally, you could migrate your .NET web applications to Azure App Service. And currently, this support is only available for your VMware installations. And again, from a PowerShell script and the standalone migration tool perspective, I briefly spoke about it. That again, one good use case for both of them is if you want to do a quick migration, you don't need to get into the complexities, or you're not looking to do an installation of an appliance. Basically, that's where you can look at using PowerShell or migration assistant tool. And again, you can also look at performing bulk discovery, assessment, and migration using PowerShell script. But remember, it is only for a single IS server. So again, from a functionality perspective and behind the scene, how we do different evaluations, the logic remains the same. What differs here is the scope. So if you're looking at and again, just reiterating, because this is very important to understand and at times can be confusing. If you are looking at migrating the data center, head over to Azure Migrate. If you are looking at migrating a single server or move out from a cloud service or a Azure VM over to Azure App Service, that's where you go ahead and start using the PowerShell migration scripts. And finally, if you're just looking at experimenting or showcasing how the whole migration works to your customer, that's where you pretty much go ahead and use the migration assistant tool. With that, let's go ahead and we start the entire discovery process. Now, if I look at the next steps, here is once you are into the Azure Migrate experience, we do give you a list of number of web servers that we have discovered. Now, if you see here, what this means is that from the on-prem environment or the on-prem VMware environment that my appliance is configured with, we have discovered 75 web servers. Now we do give you a list of entire inventory of the web servers. So over here, if you see, we give you the name, we give you the IP address, we give you what type of, is it like IPv6 or v4? Are there any database instances that were discovered? Number of web apps, codes, I mean, that kind of infrastructure details as well. And if I want to dig deeper into any of this, what I do is I click into individual. Now I start getting into the individual web applications. And the way we discover or we ascertain that a certain VM has IIS server installed on it is using the roles and features. If you see here, this is the role and feature that basically tells us that there's an IIS server on this VM, and this qualifies as a discovered server for IIS. Once we are done with this, we can get into the individual web application. You can see on this specific IIS web server or this specific VM, we basically discovered 2 web applications. And this is the kind of metadata that we discovered for every individual web application. We discovered the URL, the protocol, the binding ports, the application pool, any connection strings, and what's the application directories. Now, once we have done the discovery of the web applications, and again, as I said a little bit earlier, the entire process, once you have downloaded and configured the appliance, the discovery process is pretty much automatic. So you don't need to go ahead and manage the appliance on a regular basis unless you need to make a configurational change. Now, there are multiple different types of assessments that you can do. We are currently focused on the Azure App Service assessments. So as you can see, already have multiple assessments that were created, but we are going to start with a net new assessment. You start by selecting Azure App Service. And again, you can set up multiple different properties. You can configure them the way you want. So you can choose the location. You can choose, do you need isolation? So in this case, I'm going to choose West US 2. Now, again, from a savings option perspective, you can choose 1 year reserved, 3 year reserved, or a 3 year saving plan. Again, these options are very much available for our customers. Once we make the selection and we save the properties, next step is obviously to go ahead and select the server. So again, remember, these are the servers that we have discovered. These are the servers where we discovered IIS web servers. So once you're done with discovery, we have set up the attributes for our assessment. We go ahead and start selecting the servers. And you can select as many servers as you want. The next step is once you're done with the servers selection is you go ahead and create a group name. And then you give your assessment a name. Now you can have multiple assessments in the same group. So I have created a new group. You could also reuse any of the existing group. Once I'm done with this, I go ahead and save and I create the assessment. Now what happens behind the scene is once we have submitted the assessment, we go ahead and run the set of readiness checks against every individual web application on the servers that we have selected. And that is where we'll come back and give you a result at a per application level. Because we just submitted, this is a new assessment that we just created. Now, once you get into the assessment, basically this is the different views that you get for your assessment. So we basically give you a web apps kind of a categorization of how many web apps are ready to move as is. That means without making any changes, I can just move my web application from these individualized web servers over to app service. In addition to that, we also give you the ready with conditions. So basically we give you three kind of statuses. We give you ready, ready with conditions, and not ready. Now, ready basically means that your web applications are ready to move as is. Ready with conditions, and again, a word of experience here that you would see far more number. If you see the number or the percentage is going to be significantly higher for ready with conditions. Reason being, it's very common for us to find that in an on-prem or in a customer scenario, the simplest of thing is that they are running on different authentication. So basically, customers might be using integrated Windows auth with their web application. And as you are aware that from an app services perspective, I should say there is no concept of integrated Windows auth. Obviously, you do Azure Active Directory integration. So there are ways to use the same Active Directory integration with your web application. But if you look at the same integrated Windows auth, yeah, that's not something how it works on app service. But what that means is, despite of us discovering or assessing that your web application may have integrated auth, we can still move the web application. The only thing, it moves in as a anonymous authentication. In post migration, as I said, you can go ahead and set up stuff like Azure Active Directory based authentication. The other common failed readiness check that we quite often see is non-standard port. So now for app services, we do support traffic on port 80 and 443, but again, it is very, very common for us to basically have customers hosting their web applications on non-standard ports, say 9000, 99, whatever. Maybe we can look at a few more warnings. Let's look at one web application where you would actually have not ready status. And it is very, very clear. One of the common issues for your application not being ready is that, again, from an app services perspective, we only support HTTP and HTTPS protocol. If on-prem web application is using any other non-supported protocol, or if the size of your web application to be migrated is more than 2 gigs, that is where you would basically, we will go ahead and report your web application as not ready for migration. Now we have another view, which is around the cost. So basically, again, from a planned density perspective, the way we do it is, based on our experience, we pretty much recommend a PV3, a single instance PV3 app service plan with 16 web applications. So that's pretty much a standard that we have taken from, and again, these are sort of things that you can change as part of the whole migration flow. Now, once we are done with the assessment, let's move over to the whole migration. And you start the migration by clicking replicate. Once you click replicate, you go ahead and make the selection of what's the target. So I am trying to migrate currently my ASP.NET web applications and to app services code. Now you see other options as well. With over a period of time, we are going to light up these options as well. What's the type of virtualization? So yeah, currently, as I said earlier, from a migration perspective, we only support VMware right now, whereas Hyper-V and physical server is supported for both discovery and assessment. Now you select an assessment that you want to move your applications from. Click on continue. Now this is where the actual migration process starts. So if you see here, The first thing is you need to select the subscription to which you want to migrate. And again, a word of experience here, you could assess your web applications using a different subscription, but you could actually migrate your web application to an entirely different subscription. That's possible. Make a selection of the resource group. You can either use an existing resource group or create a new one. Choose the region. And again, it could be that you might have run the assessment in West US 3 and you are migrating to West US 2. Yeah, I mean, technically that's possible. Is there a ramification? Maybe a cost difference because of location. I'm not so sure about it, but just to be aware. Okay, before I move on, a very important word here on this screen, the storage account. Now, why am I creating a storage account? The idea here is that as part of the entire migration flow, I am basically going to connect back to the virtual machine, zip the entire content, and then use this storage account as an intermediate storage for my web application. Meaning, I'm going to put the zip in this storage account, and as a final step of my migration, I will link the zip back to my web app. Now you can see here one important thing, that all the web applications which have basically status as ready as are tagged as yes or will migrate, meaning only the web applications which have the will migrate flag as yes would actually get migrated. By default, we are not selecting ready with condition apps, and the reason is we again want to allow our customers to make an informed decision about if they want to move ready with condition web applications. To do that, you click on edit, you change the flag to yes. On this screen, you can even change the name of your web application. Again, this is the name that we are going to use when we create your new web application in Azure App Service. Now, if you want, you can also do a bulk edit. So basically, if you see, I am selecting multiple web application, clicking on edit over here, and now I can change the will migrate flag in bulk if needed. I can even go ahead and create a new app service plan. Once I'm done with this, I go ahead, and now the next screen for me is basically making changes or selecting the plan. So this is the plan which gets created, and my all web applications would be deployed as part of this app service plan. Now, again, on this screen, I can make changes to the app service plan. I can change the name. If required, I can even change the pricing tier. So remember, I said that we do make like a default recommendation of P1, V3, and we recommend, again, or we suggest rather 16 web applications as part of a single instance. But again, you guys or your customers would know the best. So you can go ahead and change the pricing to, like in this case, I've intentionally changed it to a standard S3 instance. In the final step, we basically go ahead, and what we do is behind the scene, we generate a giant ARM template with all of the settings. We run a basic validation, and if required, you can even download what's getting migrated as a CSV. And we click on the migrate button. Now, once you click the migrate button, what we start doing is we start creating the storage account, we start creating the app service plan, and then we start creating app services web apps. So basically, we do it in a sequence, and then in the final step, we are basically going to connect back to the virtual machine, to the individual virtual machine, zip the entire content, and then put it back into the storage account that you see that we are creating on the screen, and finally link this content back to the app service web app. So that's the end-to-end flow for your migration.
Well, thank you, Spiro. I appreciate it for that demo. So that was Azure Migrate, and as part of our tool belt of solutions to help you migrate and modernize your applications, once you have done that initial discovery and assessment and potential cost that may estimate and things like that, sometimes your application may be deployable on Azure. Maybe you can just bring your application, lift and shift and run. But you also want to modernize your application and re-platform your application and leverage those other Azure services from our platform as a service office, like the one like Michael mentioned earlier on. And to do that, we have this other tool called Application Code Assessment Toolkit for Java. We also have it for .NET. So the command line is called app-cat, and because of the command line, we like to call it app-cat. So with app-cat, you can just run it from your command line, and it will assess your application for readiness, but also provide recommendations for what to do in the code to make sure your application is leveraging the best of Azure. So with app-cat, you can discover the technology usage inside your code, what libraries you are using, what dependencies you have, what frameworks, what versions, etc. Sometimes customers don't know. Maybe they outsourced the development of an application. They have the application up and running in production, and now the application is in maintenance mode, but they want to modernize it. They don't know what dependencies, what are like the bill of materials of that application. So they can run app-cat against it, and they can have a nice report that will show what the application contains. We have some testimonials here from customers recently. They have used app-cat on their application portfolio. Like this customer here is like a German automaker, and they had 100+ applications to migrate. And you can simply get a developer to walk through manually on each application source code and map out what libraries are being used, how connections are being made, how secrets and passwords are being managed, and things like that. So when you run this tool against this, like imagine like a folder with the 100 applications in that folder, this tool will assess and scan through all that code and provide that report. So you will have a nice report that will show, hey, we found like 15 cases of password hard-coded in your code. There you go. You now have a clear picture of where the problem lies. This customer here, it went from a 3-day effort to a 5-minute effort. We saw Michael mentioning in the beginning how Azure PaaS saves like a lot of time. Well, this tool here saves a lot of time as well on doing that code assessment. This other customer here had a series of different applications, mostly Spring Boot with MySQL database and S3 on AWS. And again, like a 3-day effort was cut short to a 5-minute, and where they found 60 instances of IP addresses hard-coded in their source code. And why IP addresses hard-coded is bad? Because when you move that to the cloud, that application may not have access to that IP address. The connectivity may not be there because it's on a different network, right? So you have to make sure that you can configure the routes to those servers from your application to your server. Maybe you want to set up a VNet, maybe you want to set up something, but you cannot have the IP address because the IP address may be different in the cloud. You have to use host names, potentially a DNS or something like that. Also interesting, it was the usage of S3 SDKs. And when you move to Azure, you want to use the Azure SDK for storage. And finally, most importantly, the use of Log4j vulnerable versions of the library. And we saw this incident a couple of years ago where Log4j was exposing a lot of important information and even allowing remote code execution. So this tool allowed customers to see that at scale. So to walk us through app-cat in details, let's hear from 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗶𝗁𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀😏.
Hi, let me present Azure app-cat for Java, or Azure Application and Code Assessment Toolkit. app-cat lets you discover and assess Java applications using a command line. When you go to aka.ms/app-cat, you get a landing page with some documentation. It explains in more details what app-cat is and what it does. To use it, you need to have Java 11 or Java 17 installed. Download the zip file, save it on your local drive, and unzip it. Open a terminal and go to the app-cat directory. Go to the bin directory, where you can execute the CLI depending on your operating system. If you want to see the CLI up and running, go to the sample directory. Here you can run several types of analysis on the sample Java application 𝗬𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀😂. app-cat can scan directly the Java source code as well as decompile the Java archive. Here 𝗬𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀😂. The analysis runs for a few minutes. When it finishes, it opens up a browser with the analysis report. We then access the analysis dashboard. On the main application dashboard, you have a summary of the complexity to migrate this application to Azure App Service. Here we can see that this application is quite simple to migrate. Only 21 incidents need to be fixed to migrate. The other incidents are optional and can be fixed at a later stage. We can then dive to the list of incidents discovered by AppCat. Incidents are aggregated by category, level of effort, and target. Let's select Azure App Service. Here we see that AppCat has detected a Spring security-related dependency. When we click on the incident, we have a message informing that we should consider using Azure Active Directory, or that the application uses environment variable properties. If we click on the incident, we see the code that gets the properties, and we have a message telling that we could consider Azure App Configuration instead. AppCat is also interesting to discover which technologies are used in an application. I will leave you with a few resources. Just go to aka.ms/appcat and you will get all the information you need to learn the tool, download it, and use it on any Java application you want to discover or access. It also points at the full documentation on how to use the CLI. And because AppCat is very flexible, it lets you create your own assessment rules. And for that topic, we have a specific documentation. Enjoy AppCat.
Well, thank you, Antonio, for that demo. So you saw how AppCat can be easily used by any developer or architect or ops person in your team. Perhaps even your manager can use that. I don't know, Michael, your manager, I think he's a very smart person. I think he can do that.
Totally.
So yeah, it's super easy, right? You download a zip file, you run, you have a report, and then you can assess, right? And you can do that at scale. You can do that against dozens, hundreds of projects. Well, hundreds, it may take a while, but it will still get a report, hopefully. So customers have to, of course, be conscious of that. But in the end, when your Java application is ready to go to the cloud, we are here to welcome that application. We have partnerships, we have tools, we have services. We know Java. Microsoft itself runs 2 million JVMs inside. We have JVMs running at scale at LinkedIn, at Mojang, Minecraft, on the Azure infrastructure. Lots of components behind the scenes are implemented in Java. We have lots of customers, as Michael mentioned, like Walgreens and Starbucks and others. So yeah, we have the tools, the means, the services, and the knowledge to not only run your application, but help you modernize your application with the latest and greatest of cloud computing capabilities, AI capabilities, and modern Java development. So if you want to learn more about everything that we have presented here, go check out aka.ms/modern-apps. We also have a nice blog, which is under /blogs. And then you have the links for the tools and our documentations for Java on Azure, Azure Migrate, and Application Code Assessment Toolkit. So with that, I hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
Yep. Thank you.